So our app is up and running, but one thing I like to do is I like to modify this application, modify the properties. I don't want to try and break it on purpose. Is it really using this localhost 4200? What if I gave some bad information here? Would it read that and apply cores accordingly? Let's try it. So let me just add some bad name here, just nowhere, colon 4200. I'm totally making this up. You can give it anything as long as it's not localhost. And start up my Spring Boot app again in the background so I can pick up those new properties. Go to my Angular application. And now notice here in the Angular application, there's no product categories and there's no products. Interesting. Let's go look at the actual debugger here. So in the Dev Tools and under Console, and then we can see that we have some errors here. So it said, find by category ID from origin has been blocked by cores and from origin 4200. So it's not allowing anything from 4200 because it's not an allowed origin. So you'd have to change that value back to localhost. So it is reading our properties information, run our Spring Boot application again. And then if we go to our application, then everything will work out just fine. On the back end, we really are reading the application properties and reading the appropriate data. So now we see it's back to localhost. Everything is A-OK, and we can access our data accordingly. So our cores configuration is working on the back end. I like that. Alrighty, let's move ahead to step 3 and configure the cores mapping for the REST controller. And so remember, the configuration for the REST controllers are different for the configurations for the Spring Data REST. All right, so separate configurations you have to set up here, but we can use some of the same configs. So in our REST controller, we have this checkout controller. Note up top, it's a REST controller, and we have the @cross-origin. What I'd like to do is use configurations for this. And so for the cross-origin portion, I'd like to remove this or have this configured via our application and not having to hard code it on each one of our REST controllers. So let's go ahead and delete it here, remove it from our controller, checkout controller. And we'll move into our config package and we'll create a new configuration. So creating a new Java class here. I'll call it myappconfig. And this implements the WebMVC configurer. I'll just expand my window here for a second. And what I'd like to do is access two of our properties for allowed origins and also for the base path. So here I'll set up string array, the allowed origins, and string base path. And I'll use my @value annotation to inject these property values accordingly. Add the allowed origins. Then I simply copy that, paste it, update the property reference here. So Spring Data REST .base path, because we're using the same /API for our REST controllers and for our Spring Data REST controllers. If they were different, then you'd make use of different properties accordingly. Now let's go ahead and override a method. And I'll override this method, add cores mapping. And they'll give me the basic stub here for this method, add cores mapping. So I'll just rename this parameter here to cores, just so it follows with the previous code that we've created. And I simply do a course.add mapping. I give the base path. And then I do the .allowed origins. And I pass in our variable, the allowed origins. There's one more thing that we need to do for this class, and I almost forgot. We actually need to add the @configuration annotation for this class. This basically allows this given class to be picked up during component scanning, and this configuration will be applied accordingly. So just be sure to add this configuration annotation. And then that's it. So we have the setup in place here for our @REST controllers for course mappings. Good job.